Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today's guest hails all the way from Istanbul, Turkey. Yasemin Somuncu is an expert in energy efficiency, and believe me, expert is an understatement. Yasemin has such a pure and vast understanding of her field, coupled with a strong desire to pass her knowledge to anyone who will listen. She went to school to be an architect and never stopped learning. She ended up continuing her education in England in the field of environment and energy, and she immediately recognized the magnitude of what she was taught and brought that knowledge back with her to Turkey, where there wasn't even existing dialect for what she had learned. Through hard work, perseverance, and a will to push the culture and the community forward, she started her own business, became a project manager, and now develops vocational and technical education programs for the youth to continue the flow of information, increase jobs, and work toward building sustainable energy in her corner of the planet and beyond. Don't miss this special international episode, and as always, this show's not monetized and we don't run ads. We rely strictly on word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please take a minute to rate it, review it, and share it with anyone who will listen. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thanks again, and enjoy this episode of the Blue is the New White podcast with Yasemin Somuncu. Yasemin, welcome to the Blue is the New White podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us today.
I thank you.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and let us know kind of who you are and where you come from and how you got to where you are today.
Well, my name is Yasemin and I live in Istanbul, Turkey. I'm an architect and my specialty, my expertise is on environment and energy. I graduated in 94 from university, and I immediately went to construction world, established my very small company because paper is always thankful. You can draw the most beautiful buildings. They may look gorgeous, but when you come to the realities of life with the construction practices, the economical conditions and the municipalities regulations, something quite different may appear. So after my graduation, I immediately, 3 months later, started working at the construction sites, both designing and then trying to come up with the end products. After many years of experience at the construction sites and worked as an architect, I got a half a scholarship and I went to London and I made my master's in School of Architectural Associations in London. On environment and energy. When I went there, I was approximately 30 years old, and I said, I know the profession very well, and it's going to be fine. And I went there, and I just literally shut up, and I had to listen because it was a total different world for me. There's so much new going on, of course. Technology is every day developing, and then there are new methodologies and the regulations worldwide are changing. So 1.5 years of my master's study, I came back to Turkey. It was very interesting because it was the master's language was English, and all the terminologies and concepts I learned in English. And when I came back to Turkey, I found out that the concepts and the terminology did not exist in Turkish. So literally, people were not ready on talking and working on energy efficiency. So quite a few years, I practiced as an architect again in my own circles. And then in year 2012, I attended a seminar. It was on energy efficiency in buildings in Turkey. And there, I actually met the director of the Central Energy, Environment and Economy in Özyeğin University in Istanbul. And 8 years I worked at the center, and it was a great experience over there because we completed many European Union funded projects. We completed Islamic Development Bank funded projects. These were basically all with pilot projects. We built a new building, academical building, energy efficient academic building. We made deep renovation in public building in a hospital in Aegean coast of Turkey. And then from there, I switched to vocational and technical schools and created a curriculum on energy efficiency for vocational and technical schools. Actually, how I came here was okay, as I told you, I'm an architect, and with all my experience all these years in energy efficiency and in the field, we can come up with the best projects. We can find the finance, but if the projects we have developed are not built on site properly with the proper details, it means nothing. I would like to give an example. Let's take a 10 centimeter EPC insulation material. And if we have a 2 millimeter crack in between the insulation panels, it has the funnel effect. So actually the warm bed air or the cold air is going to go through the insulation and enter the building like a funnel with higher speed. So all the money we have spent on the insulation actually is wasted.
Wow.
This is, yes. Actually, this is very crucial that what we have designed and what we have come up with are implemented on construction sites with proper skill, proper understanding of energy efficiency issues. So since 3 years, I have been working with the vocational and technical schools, as I mentioned, and we had 10 pilot schools in Southeast Turkey. The reason we selected Southeast Turkey was because the unemployment rate in Southeast Turkey is the most among the regions in Turkey, and we have most Syrian migrants there. And the schools were selected by the Ministry of Education. So we worked with the government, in collaboration with the government. It was a very successful project. So now I'm very delighted to see that the schools we have been working with are getting some further fundings and working on energy efficiency with their teachers and their students. And now what I'm actually doing is we are planning on establishing a fair, an education fair, where not only university graduates, but also vocational technical school graduates can join. And the students will be able to meet with the members of companies and get better job opportunities. And also the companies will be able to meet these guys from the vocational schools who are skilled. And I believe we are going to fill a very big gap. Actually, 2 weeks ago, the International Energy Agency announced their final report. And due to the pandemic, as everybody knows, the business sectors are crashing in many sectors. But due to the targets on the carbon neutral continents and countries, it is expected that 2 million new jobs are going to be created in the very near future. And this is a very important gap which has to be filled out by people who believe and who are skilled.
Yeah, that's amazing. And
Yes.
and I think that's I'm obviously looking forward to that. I think the whole world is looking forward to, moving past what we're experiencing right now. But from what you're saying, I mean, it sounds like you have had a lot of remarkable accomplishments over the last several years, which is just fantastic. Did you ever think that this is where that career would lead you to this type of thing?
Actually, in fact, actually, I always dreamt that in the future, one day, I would accomplish this and that. But I never knew how it would happen, when it would happen, and how life would lead me. But I believe when you have the idea, both when you have settled it in your mind and you put your heart in it, somehow you take the steps in your life also to go to that path. And as I said, actually there's a huge gap, and we need people who are interested in this area, and we need people who like to collaborate. I mean, this is not a one person show, it's a team show. I mean, if you are able to collaborate with people, if you are open to different minds and different attitudes, which is not very easy. You know, people like to show to lead one man show much more. And that's why I believe that's also one of the reasons I have managed to come all this way, because I like to cooperate. It's not always easy. I'm not an easy person myself too. I may be stubborn sometimes to get to the target. Yet, I believe very much in collaboration, in interdisciplinary works, and I believe very much in different ages and different level of people being able to work. I have so much to learn from young people. I have so much to learn from elderly people, and I like to share. I think that's very crucial. I mean, knowledge grows when you share it.
I like that.
It does not need anything when you keep the whole knowledge to yourself and you come out and say, "Oh, I did this, I did that, I got these and that award." I don't believe that it influences anyone. Okay, people may say, "Oh, she did this and that," but once you start sharing your ideas, then people with better ideas may approach you, then which you start thinking about, and then you proceed. So I'm very much into sharing, into collaboration, for anyone's knowledge who is listening to us today.
Yeah. No, and I think there's a lot to be said about that, right? Because you're right. I think sometimes our, I mean, I guess you could say human nature, right? The egotistical mind, and I'm not using that as a slight against anybody, but it's just it's a fact, right? We tend to want to show off our accomplishments, but sometimes we cross a line that's a little bit too far, and it becomes more about ourselves than it needs to be, and the whole goal. I love that line, knowledge grows when you share it, because it's absolutely true, right? And I like to think that I'm going to be a lifelong learner, and that's why I have this show. That's why I'm talking to you right now, because like you, I feel like there's things that I can learn from everybody around me, young, old, big, small, whatever. And I think that that's the way that we all push forward, no matter what industry we're in. And, especially in environmental energy and the energy sector, kind of like how you're talking about, because it's so new, right? I mean, relatively speaking, this is a new concept ish, right?
Exactly. Actually, where we stand today is that renewable energy has really grown a lot in the whole world, especially the solar energy and the wind energy systems, and their integration into the buildings and into the cities and districts. Yet, energy efficiency is not well understood. We look at energy efficiency as the sixth energy source, in fact, and it's the cheapest energy source. Why? Because we are reducing the energy we are consuming. And we can do this through passive systems and then through active systems. Once we are managing to reduce our consumption, then we need less energy. And then we can look at different options where we can get our energy from. And what we prefer to do is to get through renewable energy, but yet the policies and the regulations are not sufficient enough to back up everyone. Energy efficiency is the best way to go at the moment. And now again, because of our location, I may talk a bit about European Union. Actually, 2 months ago, the European Union announced that Europe is going to be the first carbon neutral continent in the world in 2050. So they started a very robust schedule, and they called it renovation wave. Because we cannot afford to demolish our buildings. We don't have enough place to place our waste, especially the building wastes, because we cannot reuse all of them. So renovation becomes very important. And at the moment, unfortunately, only annually 1% of the buildings are being renovated. And in order to accomplish the targets, we need to renovate 3% of our existing building stock every year. And that's why we need to have these skilled forces. We don't have sufficient skilled people to take part in the renovation wave.
Is that what's holding it back? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm just curious. Is that what is preventing that 1% from being 3%? Is the lack of people with these skills?
This is one of the major points. Let me tell you, actually, just this few weeks, we have been renovating our own building. And we live in the older part of Istanbul. So we have to be very careful with each and every step we do. We cannot just demolish our buildings and build new buildings. And it's actually not my motto either. I'm a person who is very much keen on working with new buildings, existing buildings, and on buildings which have cultural heritage. So taking this into consideration, we made a renovation of our building. With all my experience, I still have to start from scratch with the workers who came to our building, and they knew that I am quite, insistent in these energy efficient buildings. And I have many articles on this, and I'm working on this. And still, I have to start with the workers from scratch. You do this because of this. You do this because of that. So it's not easy. If you are not keen on only working on energy efficient buildings, you may say, okay, just I'm leaving this and I'm going to my normal, regular building stuff. But if you would like to work on energy efficient buildings, on energy efficiency and further buildings like passive houses, like zero energy buildings, then you need to have these skilled forces. But it sucks your energy at the side. That's one thing. And the second thing is, of course, the regulations in the municipalities are not yet supporting us for this concept. If the municipalities have the regulation, like in Italy or like in France, for example, in Paris today, you cannot make a new building which doesn't have a green roof. If it doesn't have a green roof, you cannot get the building license. Or in Italy, you have to put a photovoltaic panel at your roofs. If you don't put them, you cannot get your license. So these are, of course, very important. Not everybody needs to understand energy efficiency. I mean, technical people like us should know it and then should push the regulations, the policies, and the system to be more energy efficient. But a butcher or a grocer does not need to know on it. But if you go and say to them, okay, you won't have a building. In order to get your building and to live in that building, you have to do this and this and this and this and this and this. They will do it automatically. So people like us, if we manage to have these in the regulations, then automatically the system starts producing energy efficient buildings, energy efficient renovation and such things. So skilled people are very important. And the more people know about it, the more people demand. If there is no demand, then politicians are nice and they are relaxed, so they are not going to push and work for this. So the demand should come from us, actually.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And it's interesting to me that that you said that basically there are some people who kind of want to go back to what they know instead of challenging themselves to learn something new. Kind of the opposite of what we're talking about right now when it comes to learning. And I think it's important for everybody to understand. And you probably can speak to this a little bit better than I can, although I put a little section about it in my book. But the energy sector, I think I pointed out specifically, like wind turbine technicians, is one of the fastest growing careers in the world right now. And a lot of people don't know that, but if you think about it and think about the shift that is being made, in the last few years up until now into this energy efficiency and all these energy conscious projects. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that this new type of technology needs people, right, to be able to work on it and be able to continue to get it to function the way that it should. So, is that accurate? The wind turbine technicians and it being a quickly growing sector.
Definitely, both wind turbine sector and also solar sector, the photovoltaic panel sector are growing very rapidly, and also the mechanical systems, because these systems are not like the typical technology everybody is used to. So you really need to know the electrical wiring very well. You really need to know how the systems can integrate. Also, in our buildings, we are using all these new technologies like parabolic solar collectors, organic ranking cycle, absorption chiller. These are all new technologies, and you really need to understand how the machine is working, how the equipment is working, and how to make the configurations. One slight different cable usage, energy usage. So it is very important to get these skilled people. In our hospital project years ago, what we did was, when we were using all these new technologies like the parabolic solar collector, organic ranking, parabolic solar collectors were actually, they were produced in Italy, the organic ranking cycle in Spain, and the absorption chiller, the know-how came from United States, and it was produced in India, and they were all brought to Turkey because these were very new technologies. And in our project, we were especially using the technology readiness level 7, and we were trying to upgrade these technologies, trying to help these companies to get a market knowledge and to come into the market. So our projects were specific pilot projects. And what we did was, this hospital is placed in a university campus, and they had a vocational technical school again. So we talked with the director and we requested them to give some students to us at the construction site so they could come and work with us. Actually, they did their apprenticeship, they were paid, and one-to-one, they learned all these new technologies. How they were integrating to each other, how to work with them. So once we finished the project and we left the town, then we had people behind us who had the know-how and who were able to produce these systems in other places, and even maybe in the future they could use their know-how to produce some of the equipment locally, which is very important again because the world is going to that point again. I mean, okay, we have these international companies where the companies are buying smaller companies, and then productions are taken to countries where maybe taxing is lower and production is cheaper. But what is happening at the end is that we are trying to get these products from different countries, from other countries, and our carbon footprint is going sky high. So all these will change again. That's why it is so important. Knowledge is gold.
Yeah.
And energy efficiency, energy, renewable energy, really these are the most important technologies and concepts we really have to understand better and work on. Actually, when the pandemic started, the first thing I did was to get a training on passive houses from the Passive House Institute in Germany. We are certified through them. It's a really quite tough training. It was all about architecture, engineering, economy, and at my age, no, it was quite good to refresh some information and to get new information. And at that training, I saw how robust the technology is leading, and also how the workmanships are becoming finer. For example, in the past, what they did, a window case, and they were just placing it in the wall. Today, you are putting all these different air tightness bands. You have layers. You are trying to prevent the air tightness, and then you are facing the window casing. This means knowledge, skilled workmanship, and patience.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I don't think people understand how meticulous it has to be. I mean, I was blown away when you told me about that installation, and if you have a 2 millimeter gap and what it does. If to a lot of people, 2 millimeters may not be a lot, but when you're talking about the energy efficiency for an entire building, it's the science behind it, right? I talk a lot on this show, about obviously the skilled trades, working with your hands, and the perception that exists. I'm not sure what the perception is in Turkey. I know other countries outside of the U.S. Have a better perception of the skilled trades. But in the U.S. in particular, the skilled trades, it's almost looked at as a second rate or a second tier career. Something that you kind of fall into if people think you're not smart enough to go a different path. And one of my arguments is that if people only knew the type of knowledge that you need to have along with the physical skills to be able to do the work, it'd be a completely different story, because this is not easy stuff, not mentally or physically. You know what I mean? Especially when you're working on this stuff in the field. Out there, you have to know real time exactly what you're doing and why. Otherwise, you're not going to be good at it, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's not different in Turkey. Actually, the youngsters, they are looking at these glamorous movies and these TV serials, and they look these young chaps with the most expensive suits and with the best sports cars, and these ladies with the gorgeous dresses and always made hair and always made nails. But that's not the truth. That's not the fact. I believe with the pandemic, people are realizing that. Today, no one is looking at the suits. No one is looking at even you don't need a car. People are preferring to walk, to use a bike, and to get. They are happy if they can get some fresh air.
Yeah.
So, of course, again, things are changing very rapidly, I believe. Of course, there are some interviews which have been made in different countries. They are a bit scary because people have been interviewed and they have been asked, what are you going to do when the pandemic is over? And the portion of the people who say we are going to fly more is more than the people who say we are going to fly less. The portion of the people who say I'm going to travel more is much higher than people who say I'm going to travel less. So actually, the issue hasn't been understood properly yet. But we'll see how time proceeds. And okay, they are talking about many different vaccine alternatives, but at the moment, we all know that we still need very much time. So we need to live simpler. We need to find ways to make ourselves and our neighbors happier in different ways. And it's very important to go back to basics. I mean, when we look at the how our ancestors lived, in fact, they had more common sense than we had. I mean, we have become too much consumers. We have to learn to become prosumers. I mean, we have to produce and we have to consume in a balanced way. So, when we look at the future jobs, actually, 75% of the future jobs have not been named yet. We don't know what the future jobs will be. Okay, at the moment, we are guessing what can be done, what can happen in the digital world and in our sector. As you said, in renewables, things are changing very rapidly again. Biofuels are coming. And as you said, I mean, the wind turbines, their shape is going to change a lot. For example, again, I would like to give a very small sample because you mentioned it in your book also. Actually, years ago, in Turkey, we were using the turbines which were produced in Scandinavia because they were much more known in Turkey. And then a company decided to use a Spanish turbine. Actually, the efficiency of that turbine was better than the ones in Scandinavia because it was designed according to the climatic and the humidity ratio of the Mediterranean climate. And as we are in the Mediterranean climate too, those wind turbines were performing much better in our climate. These are very fine lines. As you said, science is very important. It's very important how we use science. So there is a huge gap of what the youngsters may select, where they would like to go, as long as they know what they want to do, and as long as they don't listen to other people and they don't just go, okay, my parents say that I should do this, or there's this very famous actress, she's like this, or this famous actor, he's like this. No, just sit down calmly and think what you like to do, where you see you are best in. If you find your weak points and your strong points, and then go with your strong points and work on your weak points, then somehow life is opening the doors. And I think that this is where I find myself today. And I don't know, if 5 years later we have this show with you, we will talk maybe very different issues, very different accomplishments. We'll see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, there's a lot to be said about that. I often talk about the difference between practicality and passion. You know, a lot of kids these days, you know, they mistake passion for something that they want to do for the rest of their lives, and they don't understand that. You know, for instance, I mean, there's things that I'm passionate about that I am terrible at. You know, and I like to do them, sure, but could I make a career out of it? Probably not. You know, so I think um, everybody, you know, before they decide what they want to do for the rest of their lives, should really, as you said, you know, take a good look in the mirror, talk to those closest to them, and make an educated decision on, you know, what it is that they're best at, and like you said, follow that path. You know, because ultimately, what you're good at is going to translate into the difference that you can make, the amount of success that you can see, no matter how it is that you define success. And you know, that's another thing I talk about a lot. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about that. And as far as you know, kids seeing, you know, the glamour and stuff like that, and wanting to pursue that, you know, glamour is dependent on one thing. You know, those types of professions and jobs are dependent on one thing, and that's people watching. Whereas working with your hands and doing something meaningful in uh, construction or energy efficiency, or you know, any kind of skilled trade, really is dependent on on yourself and how much improvement you can see over a certain amount of time in yourself, and it's a different feel. You're not relying on anybody else to make your career. You're relying on yourself, and the effort that you put forth.
Definitely. And once youngsters are opening their eyes, they will see that there's so much to do. There's with this, of course, very um, quick lifestyle before the pandemic we had, of course, again. People were just rushing, going here and going there, and spending time on office work and everything. And when I go in Anatolia, in the more rural places, I see how we are losing our ancestral skills. Actually, we had very nice skills, handcrafts, construction techniques, and it's when we are going in those traditional shops, we see the elder people only. And I ask them, are you working with youngsters? Do you have your apprentices? And they say no. Youngsters are not eager in learning our profession. They are not eager in learning our skills. And I'm the last one in this town who is doing this. So actually, there is a very big future in those works again. And I believe we are going to go back to them because looking at the numbers and looking at the demand, there's a huge gap there again. And also, I would like to talk a bit about the young girls, which again I have experienced in the vocational and technical schools in Southeast Turkey. Actually, these ladies, young ladies, after they graduate, unfortunately, they don't practice in construction sites. They are mainly expected to be at home because this is looked as more male job in more eastern part of Turkey, let me say. So, but with the digitalization and with the works which are needed, there is very much to do. Also, taking the know-how and finding again the gaps and what is demanded, and everybody can find another way to work if they want.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. With regard to work, and it's an interesting point you bring up about how we're almost forgetting our ancestral skills, because at some point, right, we're gonna have no choice but to pass that on because we still need them. Now one could argue more than ever, and so we can't let those die, because then there's nothing to replace it, right? And I mean, those fundamentals and those roots are the manifestation of everything that you see in even those rural towns and villages and stuff like that. And is it the youngsters don't want to learn that trade, to learn that craft? Are they just not interested, or do they not see the practicality in it?
There, I think, again, a few reasons for this. One is somehow the new technology is being introduced in such a way that if you want to look like having a quality life, you shouldn't live in these towns or in these kind of buildings. You should live in these buildings. For example, you shouldn't live in earth brick houses. You should live in brick houses. So somehow the marketing again has led the people in the last 50 years in a very different direction. And also a very important issue is the mass migration. Because when you are living in a place and when you digest your surrounding, when you understand the nature you are living in, you start living according to that nature, according to the climate, according to the people, the animals, creatures around you. But if you have to migrate from one place to another place, no matter what it is, if it's because of climatic reasons, if it's because of war, or it's because of job opportunities, once you move from the place you are used to, are a you are an outsider in the new society. So that means, first of all, a big information flow destruction. I would like to give an example again. In one of our lakes in Turkey, we used to have a fish, a big fish, a kind of big fish. And the people who used to live around that lake knew when they should go out fishing and get the fishes, and when they should leave them for nesting and laying their eggs. But somehow, approximately 100 years ago, all the people around the lake had to leave this place because of war, and new people came there. And what happened was, because these newcomers did not know how to live there, and they did not know the nature of the fish, they started hunting the fish every week, every day. And they almost the fish was diminished until a professor came out 20 years ago, and he started studying on the fishes, and he convinced the university, and they started growing the fish again. And now, again, this fish is happily protected and is again inhabiting in that lake. So the thing is, first of all, the information flow. How we can manage to let the information pass through next generations. If we don't provide these, I mean, we cannot expect the youngsters to get all this knowledge and idea. And if we don't have proper role models in the sector, these youngsters will go after the role models shown them by the media. But if we are able to show proper role models, these youngsters will get excited, and then they will, of course, learn what they need to learn with the skills trait. That's one thing. And another thing is, as we talked, of course, demand should be there. Let's say you would like me to design your house, you would like me to make your house, and I say to you, Josh, let's make a passive house. And then, okay, we sit down and calculate how much it will cost for you, and I show you the return of investment for your building and everything. And then if you understand the idea, and then you say to me, Yasemin, let's go on with this, then I'm going to get the skilled people for this house, which means maybe I will have 10 more workers who are going to take part with me in this house. And also I'm going to use much greener materials than the normal cheap ones you can find around. But if you say to me, Yasemin, no, you are telling very nice story, but I'm not interested in this. I would like to go with the regular way. I just want to have a huge triangular yellow building. This is all I want. Then I'll go, of course, with the cheap yellow paint, with some cheap workers. So this is actually how we can create demand. And if youngsters see, okay, yes, I am appreciated, people are interested in my work, they like what I'm doing, and I am earning money, I can do a living from this, then they will, of course, be interested in this. This is the way how we open the way for the youngsters.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. It's how it's prevented too, and it goes back to what we were talking about before. You know, when you're talking about the information flow, and I thought that was a great example with the fish. You know, but that goes back to what we were talking about being at the very beginning of the show, being willing to learn from everyone, right? not only should we be willing to learn from everyone around us, but we should also be willing to teach. I think that's what you alluded to, and you said knowledge grows when you share it. And so I think it's a collective effort by everyone to be able to teach what they know and learn something new from everyone around them, no matter where you're at. And that's a big part of the skilled trades in general, no matter what sector you're in, because it depends so much on that information flow. It really does. So I'm really glad that I got a chance to talk to you about that. That was really inspiring stuff, and I think my listeners are going to have a ball with that. I wanted to ask you. We've got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to ask you about the vocational and technical schools, the Next Generation project. Could you explain that a little bit?
Actually, this was creating a curriculum on energy efficiency for the vocational and technical schools. It lasted, the first project lasted 8 months, and the second project has been lasting for 2 years. And actually, with the 10 pilot schools we had selected, we worked on our program hands-on with the teachers and with the students. So this was both a learning curve for us also, and it's very important not to dictate people, not to give them information, but to create the curriculum and the roadmap together. Because yes, okay, I'm an expert, I know many things, but what the teachers and the students are expecting on their side, it comes from them. So it was again a collaborative program, and now with the pandemic, of course, everybody is going online training, which is in fact very difficult when we talk about skilled works, because okay, you have this theoretical part, you can get until a certain point with theory, but if you don't work with your hands, if you don't ruin the stuff, if you cannot manage to place all the pieces together again, you cannot go further with your training, and you cannot be skilled person.
It's just theory at that point, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And now this is a big problem, because whether the students should be able to go to their workshops or not, this is creating a big problem. So we'll see, of course. At the moment, we don't know how things will proceed, but we have to find ways, new distant learning techniques, and new distant learning workshop methodologies. So without losing time, we can go on with the training. So we have a new project. I'll just tell the name. It's Smart Generation. You have to be smart now to live with these new conditions. Actually, with Smart Generation, what we are trying to do is we are planning to work with any country and any group who are interested in distance training methodologies, and that is very important, we believe.
Yeah.
And this is, as I said, Next Generation has been very influential. It has been very effective, and after the project has been completed, now very many vocational schools are taking their own routes, and they are trying to create some new curriculums according to the areas and sectors they are interested in, whether it's electromechanical sector, whether it's renewable energy sector, or only masonry. They are trying to find their own ways. I think we are going back to the roots somehow. That's very important. And yet, it's very, this I should underline, yes, okay, we started this in our country, but there is a huge need to develop these trainings in many countries. In many countries, energy efficiency is not even talked. Just going back to our talk, when I came back from England to Turkey, I mean, we were not using the terminologies on energy efficiency. That took a few years. And now in many countries, renewable energy is talked a lot maybe, but energy efficiency is not understood. With my last project I did abroad last year, when I went to the again to the governmental bodies to talk about energy efficiency, they said, "Oh, this is the stuff with renewable energy." Yes, I said no, and then I realized first renewable energy and photovoltaic panels were introduced in that country, so they were relating everything to solar panels. So it's very important to explain these different concepts, but their differences, where which one starts where, which one ends where, and then how the other one is supporting the other concept, in fact.
Yeah. It sounds like incredibly rewarding work that you're doing. I mean, not only does it sound like it's a necessity, from a technical standpoint and from a future generation standpoint, but also just, what you're building for the future generations to allow them the opportunity. I mean, that's got to be a rewarding feeling.
Exactly, for sure. At the moment, I'm working with some university students also, and actually they are studying international politics. And I hope that these young chaps are going to graduate with the great knowledge of environmental friendly living and energy efficient living. So one day they are going to create all these regulations which we are desperately in need of.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, with that, I have one more question for you that I love to ask everybody. And I touched on it a little bit just a little while ago, but I like to talk about success and the successes that are available in and around the skilled trades, and how a lot of them allow somebody the opportunity to live whatever their definition of success is, whatever that means to them. So, what's your definition of success?
The more I see people talking about energy efficiency, and the more I see people are buying green materials, that is where I feel success is. This means that I have been able to explain myself. And I would like to tell also, lastly, success changes according to everyone. I mean, some people, they would like to be well known. Some people, they would like to make lots of money. As long as you are doing the job you are passionate about, money is there, rewards are there, and being known is there. And somehow, if you share your success also, and if you share your rewards, the more people are helping you to get to a step further.
Yeah. No, I think that's very, very well said, and some very, very great advice. So, with that, Yasmin, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Uh, I'm very easily approachable at LinkedIn, so I would prefer that anyone who is interested to know about what I'm doing, anyone who would like to collaborate with my projects are more than welcome to find me at LinkedIn. It's pretty straightforward, Yasemin Somuncu. And I hope you are going to give my full name written, so people will be able to find me. And I'm looking forward to meet anyone who is interested in this field.
Fantastic. And yes, I'll tag you in the clips that I put out as well, and we'll make sure that we get a link to your LinkedIn profile so people can easily find you.
Thank you so much. It
Th-
was a great pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, thank you so much for your time and coming on the show and sharing all your wonderful knowledge with my listeners.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And have a nice day.
You too. Thank you.